We're going to get going on this month's training. This is going to be a monthly series. This month we have Jacqueline Hassett from Region 4, the Executive Director, doing SMART goals. Very fun topic. I don't know who in here doesn't love SMART goals, but you're going to love them after today because they're great. And like I said, this is going to be a monthly rotation of training. So this month we've got Jackie and SMART goals. In March, we have Managing Conflict with Emily Holth. I'm going to say her last name the best I can. And then in April, we have Trauma Informed Care with Jennifer Schlinger. Okay, so this is the first of many training sessions to come. Again, Jackie is going to take it away, share her screen, put your
I
name.
I gave you a request to share my screen. It said send
Yes,
request. So can I do it
I,
now? Oh, now I can
yes.
do it. Got
Okay.
it.
Okay, and then if everyone could again put your name, region, and title in the chat. Jackie, it's all yours.
Let's see if I can get this going. God, there we go. Whew. Okay, you can see it.
We can see presenter mode.
Ugh, good gosh.
I know, technology, and it's Monday.
Okay, how do I do this? Da, 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 da. Okay. I am not used to Zoom, so um, slideshow, right?
Yes.
And then from beginning, and it should end up.
It's probably this share screen. So if you hit share screen and then select just your presentation and not presenter mode, try that.
Okay.
So on your Zoom bar, um, do your share screen again.
Yep. Go here.
And then select the screen that has just your presentation on it.
Yeah. I feel like that's what I did, but
Let's see if it works this time. Okay, and then from beginning, maybe try that again. We are still seeing presenter mode, but if you're okay. Oh, look, right there. Can you do that?
is that it?
There we go.
Yay! Yeah.
Technology.
Okay. Um, okay, so today we're going to go over SMART goals and I'll explain the E and A later. I like to say, some people say it's SMART goals, some people said it's SMARTY goals, some people say they're SMARTA goals. Like everything, we love an acronym. And so really, I mean, I'll go over those later, but all inclusive. A little bit about me. I'm a licensed social worker. I do have some experience teaching in social work. I taught at UND for a couple of years. And then in terms of like my actual like direct client services, I've worked in foster care, I've worked with at-risk families, some case management there. I worked at the senior center for a stint. And I worked with domestic violence victims and doing a lot of programming and that kind of thing when the university had a women's center. And so I was there probably like, I don't know, 10 years or something for a very long time. So that's just a little bit about me in terms of my background and experience. I always feel like people are always curious about the presenter. So I thought I would go ahead and give you that information. All right, here's the goals of our presentation. I want you to be able to identify what the acronym SMART stands for in relation to goal work with clients, be able to write a SMART goal, and identify ways to help clients establish those goals. Because let's get real, anybody can take a sheet that shows you how to write a SMART goal and you can probably figure it out. So I'm hoping that I'm going to be able to give you some context and maybe some things to think about, even if this is something that you've done before. The first thing to think about, is it a wish or is it a goal? I could say, I want to be able to walk on the moon. For me, probably a wish, right? Not something that I can achieve in this lifetime, and probably not realistic to really anything, right? But for someone else, it may actually be a goal because it is something that you can achieve, landing on the moon. So it's not unachievable, but it is definitely something that probably only applies to a small group of people. So let's say I'm an 18-year-old and I want to walk on the moon. I can go to college, I can get fit, I can have all these other tasks that will get me to that point in some time frame. And much the same with our clients, we need to establish, is this a wish or a goal? Now, would I say, you wish to a client? Probably not. But in my head, I could think, this is probably not something that they could actually do in a short amount of time. And so your job as a caseworker is to really help them navigate what a goal actually is and figure that out. We can't always assume that people know what goals are. Not everybody grows up with that kind of modeling or education. And so that'll be part of your job, is to get them on that page. And of course, the start of it all is relationship building. And I put a puppy on there because, you know, who doesn't trust a dog? I trust dogs probably more than people sometimes. Don't underestimate the power of building that trust with the client. Just think about yourself. Do you want to build goals with somebody who you don't really think cares or wants to see you or feels too busy to see you? All of those things can be barriers to clients interacting with you and reaching their goals. And of course, we want them to reach our goals. So be sure you're taking the time to build that trust, to build that relationship. Don't make it so transactional, right? We want to be able to make sure that we're talking to them as people, because that's going to go a long way towards their success. So here's the nitty gritty. SMART stands for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. Let's go over each one. Specific. You want to be very specific at what you want to achieve, right? So you don't want it to be abstract or confusing, very specific. So if I'm saying, I want to lose weight, just simply saying, yeah, I'd like to lose weight isn't going to really help me reach a goal at all. But if I can be very specific, I want to lose 10 pounds, that's a lot more helpful. And it's going to motivate me in a different way than if I just have some abstract sentence out there in my mind. 10 pounds, it's measurable. That's what the M stands for. So can you measure this success? Are you able to track the progress that you're making? Is it something that can be measured? And of course, you may need to get creative with this, right? Measuring doesn't always have to be hard numbers. It can be maybe your perception. Like, let's think about mood. Maybe my goal is to have fewer depressed days, or to have more occurrences where I feel happy in social situations, or something, whatever that might be. You could always have someone do a feeling journal and see if they're actually increasing those days, or having less of those bad days. That's something that's measurable. So it doesn't always have to be hard data, graphs, that kind of thing. Is it achievable? So like I said, is this a wish or is this a goal? You want it to be something that the person can achieve. And you want to make sure that it applies to their current situation. It matches their needs and it matches the program. All of those are very important pieces in order for this to happen. And we'll dig into these a little bit more, of course. Relevant. So you got to make sure that this is a goal that makes good sense to the person. what we know is that when somebody has some ownership over that goal, their chances of success are going to increase. So, is this something that makes sense for them? Is it something that makes sense for where they're at right now in their life? Doesn't make sense for how long you're going to be working with them. That's also something to consider. And then, oh, I like this also, this line about are you the right person to achieve this goal? I know that young me would often try to control things that weren't always in my control. I still slip back there once in a while, but I'm doing much better at that. But somebody might be like, well, I just want to, I don't know, make my teenager listen to me. Well, that's probably not something that that person can really control, right? We can't control somebody else's behavior, but can we improve our parenting practices? Can we take classes? Yes, those are things that we can actually do, right? And then is it time bound? So you want to make sure that you have a start and end date or something where you have a deadline, something that can help you reach that. Is this a tomorrow thing? Is it 1 week thing? Is this months down the line? How far out are you going to give yourself some time to do this? Any questions yet? No? Okay.
I don't see any in the chat either.
All right, wonderful. All right. So why do we care about doing this, and why is SMART goals something that you're going to see over and over and over again if you do this kind of work? Well, because SMART goals give us that focus, right? It's not abstract. It provides clarity to the situation so everybody understands what that goal is. And it helps boost motivation. If I know my goal is that I'm going to be able to run a mile in 3 months, then that's helpful to me because I have something to chase, right? I have something that I want to achieve. If I just say, well, eventually, I probably will try to get to a mile. That's not always so helpful, right? Because what I know about myself, especially, is that I'd probably procrastinate and I would stretch that out as far as I could before I would actually get myself to do it. It increases accountability. So just like I was saying, when I'm going to procrastinate, but you are actually their caseworker in this sense. And so there's some accountability in that co-creation of that goal. And so someone else is hearing that goal. Much the same as sometimes people put on social media, my goal is to do this, right? And so they're keeping themselves accountable through somebody else. And having that be specific is really going to help with that. And knowing that you're the one that has to act on it and that being written out, there's some power in that. It's going to improve communication. So there's no assumptions being made here as the caseworker and client relationship. It's very clear what you are going to get together and work on. The ways that you're probably going to help are really going to be steered by what those goals are as well. And of course, it's solution focused. We're going to try to help meet a goal, probably because there's some gap or an issue there. And what we know, the data proves solution focused work. You might hear about solution focused therapy. That's a therapeutic way of working with clients where, if you're actually their therapist, you're working on solutions and having more short-term interaction. Pretty close to what you're doing as a caseworker, right? You're not providing therapy, but you certainly are working for some solutions, and you have a limited amount of time that you're going to be working with them. And the data shows that it works. Solution focused efforts work with people, and it works in a variety of settings. It works with a variety of cultures and ages and backgrounds. And so it's really perfect to have SMART goals because the data backs it up. This works. It's something that's going to work for them. So let's break it down. Anybody know that guy in the corner? If you don't, you need to watch Yo Gabba Gabba. That's DJ Lance, and one of the songs he does is "Let's Break It Down." So that's why I put it in there. So maybe you'll go and watch Yo Gabba Gabba if you get nothing else from this. Let's break down all those different pieces. So specific, is this goal linked to one activity or one thought? It's not going to be helpful if it's a compound goal, right? You want to be able to tease those apart if you need to. You want to use plain language. Don't put in a lot of jargon. If you're writing this with a client, there should be no need for jargon, right? And use verbs that are going to document some action. With measurable, you want to think like, can I put this on a graph? Can I say how much they've improved? Am I able to answer that question when I look at this goal? How much and what direction will the change occur? So there's multiple ways to write maybe the same type of goal. Like I said, with mood, like I'm going to have, or maybe sobriety, right? I'm going to have this many days where I am sober. Or you can say, I'm going to have fewer days that I would be drinking. I'm going to only have a drink this many days. There's multiple ways to do that. What data will you use to measure this? So as the caseworker, you need to be thinking right away as you're co-creating this, what are the different ways that I can actually measure this? Where will that come from? And is there like a time frame for that? Is that going to force your hand in terms of what kind of measurement you're going to use? And if you can't directly measure it, is there a way to figure out how to measure that? So let's see if I can think of something that would be, if you're not directly measuring it. Well, I think the mood example is good. I can't directly measure that, but the client's involved in that. And perhaps this is something that there's observations from a probation officer or their job coach or something of that nature. So if you really think about it, there's probably a way to measure it. And is it achievable? You don't want it to be too soon because you want to give them time to succeed and to demonstrate that they've done that. And you don't want it to be too far away because then you get someone like me who's going to procrastinate. It might make it hard for me to remember that this was the reason I was doing something. You're probably not going to run into that too much because you might if you work with a client over a year or so. You don't want to have it, well, at the end of the year, this person will do this at the very beginning of that relationship, because is that something that's really going to, you're going to track all the way? Is that something that you're going to remind them of? Maybe not. Can you break that down into other maybe goals? And then just as you complete goals, create new ones. Probably a better solution than having that really long drawn out goal. Of course, that could be in the back of the mind, but in terms of creating that motivation, having it too far away isn't always recommended. And like I said, you might want to think about, when will I know that this is happening? That might determine your time frame for you. I think I said that already, the movement of the direction. And when we're looking at in terms of relevancy, so what are some obstacles this person might face? Would any of these obstacles stop them completely from completing this? Does it relate to the big picture of what this person wants to achieve? So if we're wanting somebody to not be homeless anymore, how does this relate to that big picture of not being homeless and having some stability? And is it in line with the program that you're under? Of course, that's going to be important for you. If it's totally out of your program, is it something that's worth the time to do it? Does it apply somehow? Because we want the clients to have some control, of course, and be co-creating this with you. However, I think it's important to think about the fact that you do have program goals and there's something that you're supposed to be doing. And so something has to really be relevant to that. So if we're saying, okay, our big picture is that we want somebody to not be homeless and have some stability. Well, it makes good sense to be working on housing or job applications, finances. You can almost make anything be relevant, honestly, to homelessness. But because I can say, oh, I'm going to help them with some healthcare navigation. Well, if I do that, that really can be a barrier to having housing, and so maybe that is relevant. Um, but maybe it's not so relevant that I help them learn how to play guitar, right? And then when we're talking about timeliness, you do want to have a set period. You want to think about, is this days, weeks, months? What makes better sense? Can I break it down? How is this person? What am I getting from this person? Their ability to, um, I think oftentimes when we are with clients who are homeless or who are at risk of homelessness or have been doing this kind of up and down thing and living in poverty, one of the things that we know is that you end up being very kind of short-sighted, right? I mean, you want to like only do things that are right in front of you because you're in survival mode. And that survival mode really makes it harder to think about long-term goals. And so perhaps if you know that about that person and they've really been struggling, maybe you do have things that are just, by the time we meet next week, this is what we're going to do. Maybe that's more appropriate than something that's months down the road. And remember that if it's a big something, it's probably going to take more time than you're giving this person. Sometimes things take decades to figure out. I'm not going to make a goal that says my client, Joe, is going to have mental stability by the time we're done with this program, right? That just is way too vague and abstract. First of all, it's not specific, it's not measurable. And having stability with a complex, maybe mental health diagnosis may take a while, and it may not be something that you're going to be able to, see or measure in your time with that person. But can you take that same value of, this is something that I want, Joe wants to get some things together. Perhaps maybe one of those things is just exploring people, making a contact so that they can explore medication options or to find a therapist, right? Those are things that perhaps you can do. You also want to be aware when you're looking at times, to be aware of positivity bias. And what I mean by positivity bias is, if you are making it way too easy and you're way too happy and like, oh yeah, look at you doing this, you're you're not helping somebody. I don't know. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, you don't want that positivity bias to just be like, it strikes down the motivation, right? If it's too positive too quickly and you're not giving them any chance to go out of their comfort zone, then it's not going to be helpful. Just think about, like, if you have kids or if you have kids in your life, right? You don't want to be like, yay, to every single thing they do during the day, because after a while they're not going to hear it. And it doesn't, I mean, whatever, you're always cheering for me. I don't care. But if you see a kid that's kind of out of their comfort zone and they're trying really hard, maybe to learn how to jump on one foot, and they finally get it, and that's when it's a big yay, that means so much more, right? So you want to be pushing people out of their comfort zone. You want to make sure that you're not creating this environment where it's kind of this shallow, continuous celebration either. All right. So when we're writing SMART goals, it's good to have some sort of template to help you out with this, right? There's a number of ways to do this. And so you can see them on the side here. Who will do what, resulting in what measure, by when, right? But you can also switch that around and say, by this time, this person will do this, resulting in this. So there's different ways to write those goals out. So let's say we have George. George wants to fill out job applications or find places that are hiring, and he wants to complete, the measure might be that he's going to complete job applications or find employment. I don't know when that makes sense for this person, because I want one of you to tell me. That's what I want. So one of you take that top one and take this information and make it into a SMART goal for me. We have few enough people I can make everybody do it, but I don't know. Anybody want to volunteer? Can I call on somebody?
I like that idea. Any volunteers? If not, you're getting called on.
I'll volunteer.
Ah, thank you.
So George will let me look here. George will fill out job applications at places that are hiring, resulting in completed applications and employment by end of the month. I don't know.
Pretty good, pretty good. And we could maybe even break it down further and say how many job applications, depending on George, depending on what you think, right? Maybe George is the kind of personality that you're already feeling that this person's going to need to have a goal like 2 or 3, right? But maybe George is just super motivated and that's something that he's wanted for a long time and he seems like he knows how to do this and navigate things. You know, you don't really probably need to write down specifically how many is going to do. Okay, let's see. Ava, are you still there? Did she have to go off?
She's here. She's here, but we can't hear her.
Oh. Ava, will you take that second way of writing a SMART goal and fill in the blanks for me with George?
Since we can't hear you, Ava, you want to put it in the chat?
Oh, she doesn't have any. Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah. She's going to put it in the chat though.
Okay, cool. I don't think I can see the chat. Can you read it off for me, Safari?
I sure will. Okay. By the end of the week, George will schedule an appointment with Spectra to progress with Medicaid application.
Woo, that's a good SMART goal. Thank you. All right. Christy, will you take the third one?
By the end of the week, George has an interview with Walmart for a job.
Nice. Thank you. Resulting in a job, maybe.
Resulting
or maybe
in a
just
job.
an interview. Yeah. Actually, is that something that we can control? So maybe it is better to say, you know, they're just going to make sure that they complete that interview. Let's see. And so the last one. So we're going to include the measure first. So George completes an interview, including what wait a minute. Now I've confused myself. Measure. By the end of the week, George will complete 3 job applications. No, I did that wrong. I want to start off with my measure, right? 3 job applications will be completed by George by the end of the week. That's what I'm trying to do. It's nice to have a template though, isn't it? It's nice to have options. There's probably a way that feels more comfortable for you. That's what I like about having different options. Or maybe that's going to be helpful for the client as well to have different ways to actually communicate that. So you're going on what you most feel comfortable with, the client most feels comfortable with too. So your turn. I want you to write a SMART goal for yourself. And you can just throw it in the chat. That'd be fine. So example, I'll lose 10 pounds in the next 3 months by following a balanced diet and exercising for at least 30 minutes, 5 times a week. Super specific, super measurable. gives me a time frame, makes sense for my lifestyle right now, because I am not going to be going to the gym for an hour, probably not going to happen. I have small kids at home. And it doesn't even say I have to go to the gym. So I can go out for a walk for a half hour. I can do whatever I need to do for exercise that day. Maybe a goal is I'll save $5,000 over the next year by giving 20% of my income into a savings account. I wish I could make that goal happen. I wish it was relevant to my life, but it's not. And it probably isn't for most of the people we're going to see, but gives you an example of something that you can write. So write a goal for yourself. Make it count too. Make it be something that you really do want to do.
Okay, so everyone write your goal and put it in the chat.
Do it, do it, do it.
Jackie's throwing out challenges and homework today.
Oh, I can see the chat. Perfect. Are people typing? Okay, good. Everyone looks the same from my perspective, so. Nice. I like that, having a goal that is a work goal thrown in there. And now look at your goal, and does it meet all those SMART objectives, right? So is it specific? Is it measurable? Do you have a measurement in there? Even if it's increase, decrease, less, more. Is it achievable? Is it relevant to your life? And do you have a time frame for yourself? It is easy to forget one thing in the SMART. I think most of us will probably have a really easy time making sure something's relevant or understanding who's doing something. But that time bound and measurement piece can often get missed. Correctly. Love that. All right. Thank you. Thank you. You know what's funny is we attend things like this and we know they work. We see it happen with clients. Once you start doing this, you'll see it is really pretty successful. And that's one of the things I really like about the new program, the home art program, is that because these are kind of requirements of the program, and because we want case management to be there, you're going to get comfortable with this, and you're going to see this actually helping people. But what I think is interesting is we know that something might help a client, but we don't do it for ourselves ever. Super common, right? Those who can't teach, right? But probably not a bad idea on occasion, just to give yourself a goal. Make sure it's a SMART goal. Make sure it's going to help motivate you and give you something to chase after and push you out of your comfort zone. Because it's always nice to be able to be like, hey, I have a goal too. Write it on your whiteboard, put it up in your office, be like, this is my goal, right? I even do this. So let's look at this client. Overall, they want to improve their job readiness and employment prospects. And so their goal might be, Luis is going to secure a part-time job within 3 months. We may want to put some more on that, or maybe that's enough just to have it there. But you can remember that they can be tasks underneath this goal, and that's probably going to also help you figure out how long you want to wait. So if the client needs to go to a resume workshop, or maybe they're hitting up job service, I'm going to give them some resources for them to look at, and they're going to, make sure they're putting in so many applications per week, or attending this many job fairs, or whatever that might be for them. And we know that we can evaluate that by doing our weekly check-ins, and we can look at the applications they've put in and help them with that. Okay, so what about this E and A? Now, I know E is a dirty word these days, equity, but I very much believe in having that E in there. And the A is agreed. So some people actually say it's a SMART goal. That's kind of cute, right? It's a SMART goal. So you're agreeing about what's going to be pursued with the client. And it's important to check yourself and make sure that you've given that client enough attention and time that they're actually making that goal, and that you're not just shoving that goal in their face. And of course, you're not going to shove it literally, but it's pretty easy to get busy and be like, well, I think you should do this and this and this. And why don't we say it's by this time? And when you step back and look at it, it wasn't really agreed upon. It was sort of you telling them what's best for them. And we want to make sure that we are using their participation, that we're taking the time to help them figure it out. Why? Because they're going to be motivated if it's something that they care about, and they care about how that's going to be done. And it's also going to help your relationship with them, because they're going to know that you care about what they think. There's two kinds of motivation, right? There's extrinsic and intrinsic motivation. The intrinsic motivation is what we get inside of ourselves, the stuff that kind of, those values and those things that inspire us on the inside. And then there's the ones that are those outside goals. Intrinsic motivation is going to work a whole lot better and be more sustainable for people. Sometimes people need that outside accountability, but if it's only extrinsic, if it's only like someone telling you to do something, there's going to be less success in that. So make sure that they're agreed upon. So some questions you can ask yourself are, what goals, whose goals and standards are these? Is it something that I want for them, or is it something that we both think is good for them? Now, that doesn't mean that you can't steer clients, right? If you have a client who's way out there and doing these wish things, or trying to control other people in their goals, you can help them get to a place where they understand that, and find something that's better for them, right? So ask them, what are things that you value? What are some relationships you have? What are your strengths and weaknesses? Get to know this person so you can help them get on that path. Let's see. Do the questions that we ask, do they matter to the people? Are we aiming upstream? What system change is possible? Is there a possible systems change going to happen? And are we thinking about systemic barriers for this person? And that's where that E comes in a lot of times, because whether they are real or perceived, barriers do impact people. So if that person feels like they face racism every time they go to try to get a housing, it may be true, it may not be true, but it's a reality for that person. And how can we both validate their feelings and also ensure that they feel good about that, and what kind of goals would that affect? Or let's say somebody has a disability, right? That's a barrier, not just physically, but also systemically, because it's going to really change the kind of housing that you're going to look for, what kind of jobs that person might look for, what resources you're going to pull in. All of those things are important to think about. Okay, I was just checking on my time here. You really do want to also think about when you're doing goals, you know, in a perfect world, we do all of this all the time. And I know we don't always have the time to do all of this, but to your best of ability, it might be a really good idea to also extend this goal making session to, okay, what are some things that might make you not complete this? Let's think about those things. Let's prepare for those things, right? Maybe it's saying, okay, these are people I can talk to that are going to help me. These are things that I can make sure I'm going to keep on track with. Maybe you might create people that might help you reach your goals. Maybe you can have people in your life. Maybe there's someone in that person's life that was really going to hold them accountable and is really good to them, who they can share their goals with and help them with it. Maybe it's just as much as saying, hey, I'm going to stay off my cell phone so I can actually get some things done around here, or stay off social media, or whatever that is. I know we work with a lot of people in poverty, but that doesn't mean that they don't have some of these obstacles sometimes. So basically, you know what, if you can name your obstacle, then you can prepare for them. If you're thinking about what's going to be that drawback, and sometimes people are the drawback, right? Maybe, which is often kind of a frustrating case, is people have created relationships. They might have relationships with other people in the homeless community. Sometimes those people may not always be the best champions. Sometimes they may be awesome champions for them. So it's a good idea to think about those things when you're talking with your client. And I also want to hit on this idea of reluctant client, because one of the things I thought about with Home ARP and any program that's sort of going on this line of requiring case management. I love the fact that we're requiring case management. My new line is, we want to be transformational and not transactional. I love it that we are taking ownership over the fact that we've created programs that are completely transactional, and now we're trying to improve that practice and change the way we approach things so that clients can do better. However, that doesn't mean that all the clients want to do that. Because it's a whole lot easier just to get my rent paid and not have to deal with a caseworker every week. And many of them are probably going to come with them a little bit of baggage about the system and caseworkers. And everyone's probably got a bad story about someone that they didn't like. And there's that fear there. Perhaps they come from certain populations that are used to maybe getting some different approaches or not being treated as well, and they have some fear surrounding that. I myself was raised on food stamps and medical assistance. We were homeless at times, living in hotels, those kinds of things. Had a very big Mexican family, and there was a lot of inconsistency and a lot of moving around and stuff in my life. I wanted to become someone who helps people, but I also have that distrust myself of people that work in the system. I know lovely, wonderful people that work in the system, but when I have to go get help, that fear is still there. Why? Because I've had the experiences where people look at you like you're less than. It is sometimes embarrassing. It rubs me the wrong way sometimes, just to have to do that and to share so much of myself with somebody else. So don't be surprised if you get people that are reluctant to want to do this casework with you. So it's important to understand their perspective, right? Why are they reluctant? Make sure you're asking open-ended questions and not just yes or no questions, so that they can talk more about who they are. Make sure you're listening and empathizing with them. And you might discover that they have these negative experiences, or maybe they just don't understand goal making and they think it's pointless and they've never had something like that. I definitely would have been someone who had been like, that's such a geeky thing to do. Really, we have to do this. You're the one that's going to have to be the champion on that and help them get there. And I say reluctant because I don't like the word resistant all the time. I do slip back into that language and I try to catch myself because I don't think anybody is really 100% resistant to help. I think everybody wants help if they're in need of help. But there's something holding people back. Or maybe there's a behavior that's being seen that looks resistant, but it's really about passion or fear or something else. So you want to, some other things you want to do is you want to explore their values, what's important to them, what you may think that the most important thing for them is to understand some budgeting. For them, they don't think that's so important right now. That doesn't mean anything to them yet. But what value can you put in there that might make that something that they're okay with doing? Maybe that is, they really value safety and stability, and you can make that connection for them, right? If you have a budget and you're understanding kind of where your money's going, it's going to create some calm in you, and that's going to really help you. Yeah, it says, help your clients see how goals can help them achieve fulfillment and meaning and purpose. Those are all very important things. Those are the things that drive us. So once they identify some of those values, you can help them see how goals can align with that. And you want to have them understanding that doing these goals is going to bring them more in line with things that they want and things that they value. Here's some other, okay, so you want to also provide support and feedback. Don't forget to celebrate. We get so problem-centered as caseworkers. Why? Because we have problems that people come to us with, because all our data is looking at problems and how they can get fixed, and all our funding is about problems and problems. I mean, it's very easy to get into a space where it's negative instead of celebrating. And so make sure you're providing that feedback. Make sure that you're celebrating the wins, and that you're helping people and giving them feedback and honest feedback so that they can improve and do good. Some other tips: exploring the reason behind the resistance could be from a failure, maybe a fear of failure. And again, the lack of clarity on goal setting. Don't fall into the one-size-fits-all script with people. They're different people. They're going to have different values. They're going to have different goals. And maybe you'll start to see some patterns and get some nice language under your belt and approaches that work, of course. But be careful not to just be slapping the same old goal on everybody. If you're starting to see that, you're probably not co-creating those goals. And of course, don't give up. Also important to talk about. Just because we don't meet a goal doesn't mean there wasn't success in there. Because if my goal is to get a job at the end of 3 months, right? And I'm putting in applications and all of that, and I don't make that goal of the 3 months, it doesn't mean there wasn't success. The applications were still filled out. That person was getting out there. They were getting some experience at interviews, whatever that might be. Those are wins. And so it's important to also talk about that if the goal isn't met. All right, that's all I have for you. How am I on time? Ooh, I did not practice this, and so I practice things in my head when I really should be practicing them out loud. Because there's one other thing. I tell people all the time, do things out loud, and then sometimes I don't do them. So I was worried about time a little bit, just a little bit. I also tend to over put information into my pieces, and so I know that about myself. Anyways, I'm glad I made the time. There's my email if you have any follow-up questions, but is there any questions now or any thoughts or comments, anything? Feel free.
And you all are free to unmute. You all are in control of your own mics to ask your questions, or you can also put them in the chat. I don't see any in the chat right now, but you can. No questions. Jackie's inbox will just be flooded tomorrow because all of the questions will come to
Maybe.
you later.
Maybe.
Thank you so much, Jackie. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I hope that you got something from this, even if it's just maybe a reminder of some good practices. I know sometimes I go to conferences or go to these kinds of trainings and I'll be like, I know all this stuff. Sometimes it's nice to see it said a different way. So I hope that's the case for you. Or if you weren't aware of SMART goals, that that's something that you're going to use. Okay.
Thank you. I did learn something a lot, actually.
Good. Thank you.
Awesome. That's awesome. And I did put the registration links for the next 2 trainings in the chat. So we've got navigating conflict and trauma-informed care. So make sure you're registered for those. We have many more trainings coming. I'm maybe going to see a familiar face who's giving us a training today, giving more trainings. I don't know. Jackie is a wealth of knowledge. So thank you for being here and giving us this training. If you do have any questions, her email was on the screen and I'm going to put it in the chat before we leave. Any last questions?
You can always call me here too if you want, if that's better for you.
All right. If that's it, then we are all free to go. Thank you everyone for coming and attending and being great sports, and your goals were all wonderful and I hope you all meet them. All right, goodbye.
Bye.